Assalamualaikum and hello. In this session, we will learn about ethics in public speaking. At the end of the session, you will understand the importance of ethics, guidelines of ethical speaking, plagiarism, and guidelines of ethical listening. Ethics is the branch of philosophy that deals with issues of right or wrongs in human affairs. Questions of ethics arise whenever we ask whether a course of action is moral or immoral, fair or unfair, just or unjust, honest or dishonest. 5 guidelines to ethical speaking. Your first responsibility as a speaker is to ask whether your goals are ethically sound. What do you hope to accomplish as a speaker? You have an obligation to yourself and to your listeners to prepare fully every time you stand in front of the audience. The obligation to yourself is obvious. The better you prepare, the better your speech will be. Nothing is more important to ethic speech making than honesty. Public speaking rests on the unspoken assumption that words can be trusted and people will be truthful. Name calling is the use of language to defame, demean, or degrade individuals or groups. When used repeatedly and systematically over time, it helps reinforce attitudes that encourage prejudice, hate, crimes, and civil rights violations. Lastly, is to put ethical principles into practice. It is much better to act ethically, yet that is just what a responsible public speaker must do. As one popular book on ethics states, being ethical means behaving ethically all the time, not only when it's convenient. To plagiarize means to present another person's language or ideas as your own. It is to give the impression you have written or thought something yourself when you have actually taken it from someone else. 4 types of plagiarism can be seen here. Firstly is global plagiarism, the act of stealing a speech entirely from a single source and passing it off as your own. Then we have patchwork plagiarism, the act of stealing ideas or language from 2 or 3 sources and passing them off as one's own. Incremental plagiarism is when you fail to give credit for particular parts of a speech that are borrowed from other people. The most important of these increments are quotations and paraphrases. And lastly, when it comes to plagiarism, no subject poses more confusion or more temptation than the internet. Because it is so easy to copy information from the web, many people are not aware of the need to cite sources when they use internet materials in their speeches. If you don't recite internet sources, you are just as guilty of plagiarism as if you take information from print sources without proper citation. So far, we have discussed on the ethical duties of public speakers. But speech making is not a one-way street. Listeners also have ethical obligations. Just as public speakers have an ethical obligation to prepare fully for each speech, so listeners have a responsibility to be courteous and attentive during the speech. Next, we have all heard that you can't judge a book by its cover. The same is true of speeches. You can't judge a speech by the name, race, lifestyle, appearance, or reputation of the speaker. This does not mean you must agree with every speaker you hear. Your aim is to listen carefully to the speaker's ideas, to assess the evidence and reasoning offered in support of those ideas, and to reach an intelligent judgment about the speech. And finally, it is important to keep in mind that ensuring a person's freedom to express her or his ideas does not simply agreement with those ideas. You can disagree entirely with the message but still support the speaker's right to express it. That's the end of this session. Thank you and Assalamualaikum.